The galaxy had many legends, but none as fearsome as the galactic lion beast. Tales of the creature's power spread like wildfire across star systems. Its roar, they said, could tear open space-time itself, and its gaze could bring the strongest warriors to their knees. No one dared approach it, and even the bravest hunters kept their distance. The galactic lion was a creature of myth, a symbol of untamed cosmic power. Few had seen it, and even fewer had survived the encounter. Sergeant Jack Ryland wasn't one to be swayed by myths. He had fought across the stars, facing down enemies that made the bravest soldiers tremble. He was known for his fearlessness, but even more so for his ability to see through fear to the truth beneath it. Jack had heard the stories, and where others saw only terror, he saw an opportunity to prove that even the wildest legends could be understood. It had been 2 weeks since Jack intercepted the encrypted signal from the remote moon of Theos. It wasn't just the signal that caught his attention, it was the signature. The message was brief, garbled, but unmistakable. The galactic lion had been spotted. Jack knew immediately that he had to go. As his ship, the Voyager, broke through the atmosphere of Theos, Jack's eyes narrowed, scanning the bleak, icy landscape. Theos was a desolate place, bathed in the faint light of twin moons. The planet's surface was a mix of jagged ice formations and deep, shadowy caverns. It was the perfect hiding place for a creature that was more myth than reality. Jack brought the ship down gently, landing it in a wide, snow-covered clearing. The cold hit him immediately as he stepped out, but he welcomed it. His breath fogged the air as he adjusted his gear, checking the universal translator strapped to his wrist. It wasn't much, just a prototype, but it was the best chance he had of communicating with something no one had ever dared approach. Jack didn't need to be told what to expect. The galactic lion, if the stories were true, was not just a beast. It was a force of nature, a creature born from the stars themselves, roaming the galaxy freely and without fear. But Jack wasn't here to fight it. He was here to understand it. He was here to do what no one else would: get close. He ventured further into the icy wilderness, every step crunching beneath his boots. His heart pounded in his chest, though not from fear. It was the thrill of the unknown, the anticipation of what lay ahead. Somewhere in the distance, he heard a low, rumbling growl, like the shifting of tectonic plates beneath the surface. Jack paused, his breath catching in his throat. The lion was near. The growl echoed through the icy caverns, a sound so deep that it seemed to vibrate the air around him. Jack's pulse quickened. He moved cautiously, following the sound toward a towering mountain of ice and rock that stretched into the sky. The wind howled through the crevices, creating a symphony of whispers and roars that made the whole moon feel alive, as if it were breathing in sync with the creature it housed. As Jack approached the mouth of a dark cavern, he felt it before he saw it, the unmistakable presence of the galactic lion beast. The air seemed to grow heavier, the cold more biting. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, to retreat before the legend became a reality. But Jack wasn't like the others. He didn't run from fear. He faced it. He stepped into the cavern. The space was massive, the ceiling lost in shadows, illuminated only by the faint glow of distant stardust that swirled around the cave walls like constellations brought to life. And there, lying in the center of the chamber, was the galactic lion. The creature was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It was enormous, its body rippling with muscles beneath a coat of ethereal, shifting fur that seemed to glow with the light of distant stars. Its mane wasn't just hair, it was like a nebula, swirling and shimmering, each strand made of cosmic dust and energy. Its eyes, black as the void, reflected galaxies within them, ancient and wise but filled with untold power. Jack's breath caught in his throat as the creature stirred, lifting its massive head. The low rumble that emanated from its chest was more than just a growl. It was the sound of the universe, the echoes of stars long dead. The lion's eyes fixed on Jack, and for a moment the soldier felt like he was being pulled into the infinite depths of space itself. But Jack didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his heart pounding, but his resolve unshaken. Slowly he raised his hand, palm open, in a gesture of peace. His universal translator, now active, beeped softly. His wrist. "I'm not here to harm you," Jack said, his voice steady, though the tension in the air was palpable. "I came because I don't believe the stories. I came to understand you." The lion's eyes narrowed, its immense form shifting slightly, as if considering Jack's words. For a brief, terrifying moment, Jack thought the creature might attack, but instead, the lion let out a sound that could only be described as a sigh, a deep cosmic exhale that sent waves of energy rippling through the cavern, and then the translator beeped again. "You are not afraid," the voice said, its tone deep and resonant, as though the stars themselves were speaking. "Why?" Jack's eyes widened. The creature was responding. He had expected some kind of reaction, maybe even aggression, but not this, not communication. He swallowed, keeping his voice calm. "Fear doesn't lead to understanding," he replied. "I've seen enough fear in this galaxy. I want to know who you are, not just what you are." The lion stared at him for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly it rose to its full height, towering over Jack like a mountain of cosmic energy. Its eyes seemed to soften, and for the first time Jack saw something he never expected: curiosity. "Then come closer, human," the lion said, its voice a thunderous whisper that echoed in the depths of Jack's soul. "Let us see if you are worthy." And so, against all odds, Jack Ryland, the human soldier, stepped forward, closer to the galactic lion beast than anyone had ever dared. What happened next would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. Jack took a deep breath as he stepped forward, the weight of the moment pressing on him like the gravity of a star. He had faced countless battles, defied overwhelming odds, but nothing had prepared him for this. Standing before a creature that was more legend than life, more cosmic force than flesh and blood. His heart raced, but his hand remained steady as he extended it toward the galactic lion. The lion's black hole eyes watched him intently, the swirling nebula of its mane pulsing with energy. Jack could feel the static charge in the air, a tingling sensation that ran down his spine, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The creature didn't move, its massive paws still, its celestial fur shimmering in the half-light of the cavern. Then, as Jack's hand neared, the lion leaned its head down, bringing its enormous muzzle closer to the human soldier. For a moment, Jack thought he could see the universe reflected in the lion's gaze, stars being born, galaxies spinning in the distance, and the slow, inevitable march of time itself. It was awe-inspiring and terrifying all at once. He fought to keep his mind focused, knowing that any hesitation or fear might shatter this delicate connection. When Jack's hand finally made contact with the creature's fur, a shock of warmth spread through his arm. The lion's mane was soft, yet there was an undeniable power beneath the surface, like touching a star before it went supernova. The creature's rumbling growl deepened, but it wasn't a threat. It was acknowledgement. "You are brave, human," the lion's voice rumbled through the translator, its tone low and resonant. "Few dare come this close to me. Fewer still survive." Jack swallowed hard, his pulse still racing, but he smiled slightly. "I've always been bad at following warnings." The lion's gaze shifted, something like amusement flickering in the depths of its dark eyes. "You seek to understand me," the lion said, "but do you know what I am?" "I know what they say," Jack replied, his voice steady. "That you're a cosmic force, a being born from the stars. They call you a beast, a danger to the galaxy. But I don't believe that's the whole story. The lion studied him for a moment longer, its immense form casting shadows that danced across the cavern walls. "You are right not to believe them," the lion said. "I am more than what they say. I am ancient, older than the planets you have seen. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, and I have roamed the stars since before your kind learned to walk." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had known the lion was powerful, but to hear it speak of eons as though they were mere moments, that was something else entirely. He couldn't help but feel small, insignificant in the presence of such a timeless entity. "But why are you here?" Jack asked, his curiosity driving him forward. "Why stay on this moon, hidden from the galaxy?" The lion's growl deepened, a sound like distant thunder rolling across the stars. "I have watched the galaxy, and I have seen what power does to those who seek it. They would try to use me, to bend me to their will. They see only a weapon, a tool to be controlled. But I am free, and I will not be bound by the desires of those who seek dominion over the stars." Jack nodded slowly. He understood now. The fear that had surrounded the lion for so long wasn't just about its power. It was about control. The galaxy feared what it couldn't control, and the lion, with its immense power and untethered existence, was a symbol of that fear. "You're not a threat," Jack said, realization dawning. "You're a guardian. You protect the balance." The lion's gaze softened slightly, the glow of its mane pulsing with a gentler light. "You understand more than most, human, but there is more you must learn." It stepped back, its towering form moving gracefully despite its size. "The galaxy will not leave me in peace. The forces of greed and fear will come for me. And they will come for you now for daring to make contact with me. Are you prepared for what that means?" Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He knew what the lion was saying was true. Word of his mission was already spreading, and it wouldn't be long before the powers of the galaxy turned their gaze toward Theos. But Jack had never been one to back down from a challenge. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "I won't let them cage you." The lion nodded, its cosmic mane swirling with newfound energy. "Then we stand together, human. But the battle ahead will test you in ways you have never known. Prepare yourself, for the galaxy is about to awaken." The days that followed Jack's first encounter with the lion passed in a blur. News of his mission had already begun to spread across the galaxy, drawing attention from all corners, attention that neither Jack nor the lion welcomed. Whispers of the human soldier who had dared to approach the galactic lion, and the bond that formed between them, rippled through star systems like wildfire. Some saw it as a miracle, a sign of new hope in a galaxy filled with war and distrust. Others saw it as a threat, one that needed to be neutralized. As Jack spent more time with the lion, whom he now called Orion, their bond deepened. He learned more about the creature's history, its wanderings across the galaxy, and the countless encounters it had had with other species, some peaceful, others not. But through it all, Orion had remained free, untamed by the forces that sought to claim it. In return, Jack shared stories of humanity, their struggles, their wars, their dreams. He spoke of the stars they had reached and the ones still out of their grasp. Orion listened intently, its ancient gaze absorbing every word. "You see much," Orion said one evening, its voice a low rumble as the two of them sat on the edge of a cliff overlooking the icy expanse of Theos. "Your kind has potential, but you are often blinded by your own desires, power, control, greed. These things lead you down dark paths." Jack nodded, his breath fogging in the cold air. It's not just humans. Every species out there is chasing something. Most of the time, it's the wrong thing. Orion's mane flickered with soft starlight, the nebula swirling gently. Perhaps, but there are those, like you, who seek something more, something greater than power. That is why I've chosen to trust you, Jack Ryland. You see beyond, but what others cannot. Jack turned to face Orion, his expression serious. I've seen enough death and destruction to know that chasing power only leads to one thing: ruin. But if we stand together, maybe we can change that. Maybe we can show the galaxy that there's another way. The lion's eyes glowed brighter, a deep, resonant light that seemed to fill the air around them. Then we must be ready, for the galaxy will come for us. And when they do, we must be strong enough to face them. And soon Jack knew that time would come. The Galactic Federation, the hunters, the opportunists, word of Orion's existence and Jack's bond with the creature had spread too far. It was only a matter of time before they came to Theos, seeking to claim the power of the Galactic Lion for themselves. But Jack wasn't afraid. He and Orion were more than soldier and beast now. They were partners, allies in a fight that was just beginning. Together, they would stand against whatever came next, and when the galaxy arrived, it would not be ready for what they had become. As the cold winds of Theos swept across the landscape, Jack looked out at the stars, knowing that everything was about to change, and for the first time in his life, he welcomed it. Word of Jack Ryland's unprecedented bond with Orion, the Galactic Lion, had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The legends of the untouchable cosmic beast, once feared as a force of destruction, were now entwined with a human soldier who had done the unthinkable, made contact, established trust, and survived. Some saw Jack as a hero, a symbol of what was possible when courage triumphed over fear. Others, however, saw him as a threat, a reckless fool who had just handed humanity a weapon too powerful to control. The Galactic Federation, eager to exploit this newfound relationship, sent messages to Theos requesting Jack's immediate return to their central command. But Jack knew better. He had seen firsthand what the Federation did with power. They wanted Orion not for understanding or peace, but for control. And so Jack stayed, refusing their calls, knowing that this decision would paint a target on his back. He wasn't wrong. 3 weeks after first making contact with Orion, Jack's sensors picked up incoming ships with no official markings. But their purpose was clear. They were bounty hunters, mercenaries hired by those who sought to either capture Orion or destroy it. The galaxy was waking up to the possibility that the Lion was no longer out of reach. Greed had been stirred, and Jack knew they would stop at nothing. Orion, Jack said as he looked at the radar feed from his ship. The Lion lay nearby, still and calm as ever, though Jack knew the creature sensed the approaching danger. They're coming. I count 6 ships, heavily armed. If they land, they'll try to cage you, or worse. The Lion stirred, rising slowly to its feet. The glow of its mane intensified, as if the very stars within it burned brighter in response to the threat. "Let them come, Jack Ryland," Orion growled, the deep vibration of its voice shaking the air around them. "They will learn what it means to challenge the stars themselves." Jack's grip tightened on the console. He had fought in more battles than he could count, but this was different. Orion was more than just a beast to him now. They had a bond that transcended the battlefield. Jack wasn't just defending a creature, he was defending a friend. He wouldn't let these hunters take Orion without a fight. He suited up in his battle gear, strapping his plasma rifle to his back and activating the ship's defensive shields. As the hunter ships closed in, Jack exited the Voyager, joining Orion on the icy surface of Theos. The moon's cold winds howled around them, but Jack's focus was laser sharp. The first of the bounty hunter ships landed with a hiss, the sleek black vessel cutting through the atmosphere like a blade. The hatch opened, and outstepped Vanan CCE, a notorious hunter with a reputation for capturing the galaxy's most dangerous creatures and selling them to the highest bidder. Highest bidder. His armor gleamed under the dim light, and the cruel grin on his face told Jack everything he needed to know. "Sergeant Ryland," Van Clyde called out, his voice dripping with mockery as he sauntered toward them, "you've made quite the name for yourself, the human who tamed the untamable, but you know how this goes. You can't keep the beast. The galaxy isn't safe with something like this running free. Hand it over, and I'll make sure you get a nice cut of the profits." Jack stood firm, his eyes cold as he stepped in front of Orion. "Orion's not a beast, and he's sure as hell not for sale. You want him? You're going to have to go through me." Van chuckled darkly. "You think you can protect it? Even if you survive this, more will come. The Federation, the Empire, everyone will want a piece of this thing. You can't hold them all off, Ryland. Be smart. Walk away while you still can." Jack shook his head. "I didn't come here to walk away." With a sigh, Van raised his arm, signalling the others. The ship's doors opened and heavily armed mercenaries poured out, their weapons trained on Jack and Orion. The icy air buzzed with tension, and Jack could feel the heat of the plasma rifles pointed at him. But he wasn't backing down. Orion let out a low growl, its mane pulsing with energy, but Jack raised a hand to stop the creature from attacking just yet. They needed to play this smart. If Orion unleashed its full power, it could tear the hunters apart in seconds. But that would only draw more attention, more enemies. They needed to outthink the mercenaries, not just overpower them. "Stand down, Cly," Jack warned. "This doesn't have to end in blood." But the bounty hunter's grin widened. "Oh, but I think it does." And with that, the first shot was fired. The moment the plasma bolt left Van's weapon, chaos erupted. Jack dove for cover behind a jagged ice formation as the air lit up with streaks of deadly energy. The mercenaries advanced, firing relentlessly, their footsteps crunching over the snow as they closed in. Jack's heart pounded, but his mind was calm, focused. From behind the ice, he fired back, taking down 2 of the advancing hunters with precise shots. But the rest kept coming, their numbers overwhelming. They had planned for this. They had come ready to face whatever Theos threw at them. Orion, meanwhile, was no longer still. The cosmic energy in its mane surged, and with a deafening roar, the lion sprang into action. Its massive form moved faster than any creature that size should, leaping through the air and crashing down upon the mercenaries with devastating force. The ground shook as Orion's paws slammed into the ice, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The mercenaries who had dared to get too close were instantly thrown off their feet, weapons clattering uselessly to the ground. But Van Clyde wasn't deterred. His hunters regrouped, firing concentrated energy blasts toward the lion, trying to bring it down through sheer firepower. Orion roared again, the sound reverberating through the frozen caverns, shaking the very core of the planet. The energy blast deflected harmlessly off the lion's shimmering mane, dissipating into the stardust that surrounded it. Jack watched in awe as Orion fought with a grace and ferocity he had never seen. The lion wasn't just an animal, it was an unstoppable force of nature, a living embodiment of the cosmos. But even so, Jack knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The hunters were relentless, and if more ships arrived, they would be overwhelmed. "We need to end this," Jack muttered to himself, his mind racing as he looked for a way to turn the tide. Then an idea sparked. Jack activated his comm, broadcasting directly to Van Clyde's ship. "Cly, you think you can handle Orion? You have no idea what you're up against. Stand down, or you'll all be wiped out." Van Clyde's response was instant, his voice filled with cold arrogance. "You don't scare me, Ryland. We've faced bigger threats than this overgrown cat." "Then you're a fool," Jack said, his voice steady. "Orion's power isn't just physical. He's connected to the stars themselves, to the very energy of the universe. You keep pushing and you'll trigger something none of us can control. It was a bluff, sort of. Jack didn't know the full extent of Orion's abilities, but he had seen enough to know that the lion wasn't bound by the same rules as any creature he had encountered before. And judging by the sudden flicker of doubt in Van Cly's voice, the hunter wasn't willing to test that theory. For a moment, the firing ceased. Van Cly narrowed his eyes, studying Jack and Orion from across the battlefield. "You really think this thing can do more than tear us apart?" Van Cly asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. Jack stepped forward, keeping his gaze locked on the bounty hunter. "I know it can, and if you keep pushing, we'll find out the hard way." The air was thick with tension, the silence hanging like a thread ready to snap. Jack held his breath, waiting for Van's decision. The bounty hunter's hand hovered over his weapon, his eyes darting between Jack and the lion. Finally, with a low growl of frustration, Van lowered his weapon. "Fall back," he barked to his mercenaries. "We're done here, for now." The mercenaries hesitated, but they obeyed, retreating to their ships. Jack let out a long breath as the sound of engines filled the air, the bounty hunters lifting off and disappearing into the sky. Cold sky. For now, the danger had passed, but Jack knew this wasn't over. The galaxy had seen Orion's power, and more would come, stronger, more determined, more dangerous. As the winds of Theus howled around them, Jack turned to Orion, his chest still tight with the adrenaline of battle. "We bought ourselves some time, but they'll be back, and when they do, we need to be ready." Orion's black hole eyes glowed softly, the swirling nebula in its mane calming. "We will be ready, Jack Ryland. The stars have chosen you. Together, we will face whatever comes." Jack nodded, a sense of purpose settling over him. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for something far greater, the freedom of a creature that embodied the very soul of the universe. And no matter what the galaxy threw at them, Jack knew they would face it together. The bond between man and beast had been forged in battle, but now it would be tested in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The silence that followed Van's retreat was short-lived, though. The mercenaries had left Theus for now, but Jack knew they wouldn't stay gone for long. Word had already spread across the galaxy that the untamable galactic lion had been touched, bonded with a human. The implications of that bond, its power, its mystery, drew not just bounty hunters, but entire factions, each wanting to claim Orion for their own purposes. 3 days after the initial skirmish, the sensors aboard the Voyager picked up new signals. This time, it wasn't a small mercenary fleet. A far larger force was coming. Jack stood in the cold winds of Theus, staring up at the sky, where the distant shapes of incoming ships grew larger. His breath fogged the icy air, but his mind was clear. The Galactic Federation, led by the ruthless Admiral Theon, had arrived. "They're not going to negotiate," Jack muttered to himself, his eyes narrowing. "They want Orion, no questions asked." Behind him, the massive form of the lion lay still, its mane of stardust glowing softly in the twilight. Orion had sensed the coming battle long before the ships arrived. Its ancient eyes, which held the wisdom of eons, were calm but watchful. "The galaxy fears what it does not understand," Orion rumbled, rising to its full height. "And in fear, they seek to control. They will not stop until they see me caged." Jack's grip tightened on his plasma rifle. He had faced the Federation before, fought in their wars, and seen what they were willing to sacrifice for power. This would be no different. They didn't care about peace or understanding. All they saw was a weapon they could use to dominate the galaxy. "Not today," Jack replied, his voice hard with determination. "We're not going down without a fight." The first wave of Federation fighters swooped down from the sky, their engines roaring as they opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across the frozen landscape, and Jack dove for cover behind a ridge of jagged ice. The ground shook beneath the barrage, and the air was filled with the sounds of battle. But Orion didn't flinch. With a thunderous roar, the lion leapt into action, its cosmic mane flaring with energy. Jack watched in awe as Orion bounded toward the Federation ships, its massive form moving faster than any creature that size should have been able to. The ground cracked beneath its paws, and with a sweep of its tail, the lion sent shockwaves rippling through the air, destabilizing the fighters and sending them crashing into the icy surface. Jack opened fire, picking off the ground troops that had landed in a second wave. Federation soldiers poured out of their ships, heavily armed and determined. But they hadn't counted on Orion's sheer power. The lion swatted aside armoured vehicles like toys, its claws slicing through steel as if it were paper. The soldiers who dared approach were sent flying by the sheer force of Orion's roars, which reverberated across the battlefield like the roar of the stars themselves. Yet, despite the chaos, Jack's mind remained sharp. He fought alongside Orion, moving in tandem with the beast, as if they had trained together for years. Every time a soldier got too close, Jack was there to cover the lion's flank, taking down enemies with precise, calculated shots. The Federation's strategy was built around overwhelming force, but they hadn't counted on the bond between man and creature. As the battle raged, Jack realized something. It wasn't just Orion's physical strength that made the lion so dangerous. It was the connection they shared. There was something deeper at play, something that allowed them to move as one, to anticipate each other's actions. Jack could feel it, a presence in his mind, guiding him, empowering him. Orion was more than just an animal. It was an ancient, intelligent force, and together they were unstoppable. But the Federation wasn't done yet. Amid the chaos, the massive form of Admiral Theon's warship descended through the clouds, its colossal guns aimed directly at Jack and Orion. The ship hovered above the battlefield like a dark omen, casting long shadows over the icy plains. Jack's heart sank as he realized what was about to happen. "They're going to hit us with everything they've got," Jack muttered, his pulse quickening. "We need to move." But before they could retreat, the warship unleashed its barrage. A blinding flash of light erupted from the ship's cannons, followed by a deafening explosion. The ground beneath Jack cracked and split, sending him tumbling backward as the force of the blast knocked him off his feet. He landed hard, his vision swimming as he tried to regain his bearings. The air was thick with smoke and debris, and for a moment all he could hear was the high-pitched ringing in his ears. "Orion!" Jack shouted, panic rising in his chest as he searched for the lion through the smoke. He saw the faint glow of Orion's mane. The lion was still standing, though its form was shrouded in shadows. Jack staggered to his feet, his legs unsteady as he rushed toward the creature. When he reached Orion, his heart clenched. The blast had wounded the lion. Deep gashes marred its cosmic fur, and its breathing was laboured, its glowing eyes dimmer than before. But despite the pain, Orion stood tall, defiant, its gaze fixed on the warship above. "They have underestimated us," Orion growled, though its voice was weaker now. "But I will not fall to them, Jack Ryland, not today." Jack clenched his fists, his anger boiling over. He had fought too hard, come too far to lose now. Then let's give them something to remember. With renewed determination, Jack turned toward the warship. He activated his comm system, locking onto the warship's frequency. "Theon!" Jack shouted, his voice filled with fury. "This is your last chance. Stand down, or we'll make sure you regret ever coming here." For a moment there was silence. Then the cold, calculating voice of Admiral Theon crackled over the comms. "You're outmatched, Ryland. Surrender the lion, and I might let you live." Jack's jaw tightened. Not a chance. Jack's refusal echoed across the battlefield, and for a moment the two sides seemed to hold their breath. Then, with a sound like distant thunder, the warship's guns powered up again, ready to deliver a final, devastating strike. But before they could fire, something extraordinary happened. Orion, despite its wounds, reared back on its hind legs, its mane flaring with cosmic energy. The ground beneath it seemed to pulse with power, the very air around the lion shimmering, as if reality itself was bending. Jack felt the pressure in the atmosphere shift, like the calm before a storm. The Federation troops, sensing something was wrong, hesitated, their weapons wavering as they watched the lion. Then, with a roar that seemed to shake the fabric of space, Orion unleashed its true power. A wave of energy erupted from the lion, not in the form of physical force, but something far more profound. The stars in Orion's mane burned brighter, their light expanding outward in a radiant burst. The wave passed over the battlefield, washing over the Federation soldiers, the ships, and even Jack himself. But instead of destruction, the energy brought something else: understanding. Jack felt it immediately, a sudden flood of memories and emotions that weren't his own. He saw through Orion's eyes the endless eons of existence, the rise and fall of civilizations, the balance of the cosmos itself. He understood now why the lion had remained hidden for so long, why it refused to be controlled. Orion wasn't just a creature, it was a guardian, a protector of the equilibrium between life and the universe. And now the Federation soldiers felt it too. One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons, their faces pale with awe and fear. Even Admiral Theon, who had been so confident in his superiority, hesitated, his warship's guns powering down as he processed what he had just witnessed. Orion's roar faded, and the energy wave dissipated, leaving behind a battlefield that was no longer a place of violence, but of revelation. Jack, breathing hard, turned to look at Orion. The lion was still standing, though its form was flickering, its cosmic energy fading. The battle had taken its toll, but it had done what no weapon could: stop the fighting with a force beyond comprehension. "They won't forget this," Jack said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "No," Orion replied, its voice soft but resolute. "They will not." Admiral Theon's voice crackled over the comms once more, but this time it was devoid of arrogance. There was only fear. "Ryland, what is this?" "It's what you can't control," Jack replied, his voice steady, "and if you keep pushing, it'll be your downfall." For a long moment there was silence. Then, with a reluctant sigh, Theon gave the order. The Federation ships began to pull back, retreating from Theus. Jack watched as the warship disappeared into the clouds, the sound of engines fading into the distance. The battle was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Orion, weakened but unbroken, lay down on the icy ground, its breathing slow and steady. Jack knelt beside the lion, placing a hand on its shimmering mane. "You did it," he said softly. "You stopped them." "For now," Orion rumbled, "but more will come." Jack nodded, knowing the lion was right. The Federation wouldn't give up so easily, and others, hunters, opportunists, power-hungry factions, would soon follow. But Jack also knew something had changed. The galaxy had seen Orion's true power, and it was no longer just fear that drove them. It was respect. "They'll come," Jack said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "But we'll be ready, and next time they'll think twice before trying to cage you." Orion's eyes, glowing softly, met Jack's. "You have proven yourself, Jack Ryland. Our bond is strong. Together, we will face whatever comes." As the stars began to reappear in the sky above Theus, Jack felt a strange sense of peace. The galaxy would continue to spin, filled with its challenges and conflicts. But he and Orion had become something more, symbols of defiance, of freedom, and of the balance between power and understanding. And whatever the future held, they would face it as one, the human and the lion, bound by a bond that no force in the universe could break. News of Jack Ryland and the Galactic Lion's battle on Theus spread like wildfire through the galaxy. In every corner of the cosmos, from bustling spaceports to isolated colonies, the story was told and retold. Jack was no longer just a soldier, he was now a legend, and his bond with Orion had become a symbol of defiance against the powerful forces that sought to control the unknown. But legends come with consequences, and the galaxy was preparing for a reckoning. Admiral Theon's retreat had been a blow to the Federation's pride, and now they were regrouping. The Council, once content to let the myth of the Galactic Lion be just that, a myth, was now planning a response. They couldn't afford to let something so powerful remain outside their control. And, more importantly, they couldn't let Jack Ryland stand as a symbol of rebellion. Jack and Orion had retreated into the deepest caverns of Theus to recover from the battle. The Lion's cosmic energy had been depleted, and Jack could see the toll it had taken on his friend. Orion's once brilliant mane was dim, and the creature's movements were slower, more deliberate. "How are you holding up, big guy?" Jack asked, his voice low as he knelt beside Orion, placing a hand on the lion's cosmic fur. "I have endured worse," Orion rumbled softly, though Jack could sense the fatigue in his voice. "But the balance has been disrupted. The Federation will return. They will not rest until they have what they seek." Jack nodded. He had known this would happen the moment they defeated Theon. It had been clear that they had only delayed the inevitable. Now, the Federation would come back, and they would bring everything they had. "Then we'll be ready," Jack said, his voice firm. Orion's glowing eyes met his. "We cannot fight them forever, Jack. There are forces in this galaxy that even I cannot hold back for long. Our bond is strong, but the cost of defying them may be more than we are prepared to pay." Jack stood, pacing the cavern, his mind racing. He had never been one to back down from a fight, but this was different. The Federation wasn't just another enemy. They were an empire with the resources and manpower to overwhelm even the Galactic Lion. And as much as Jack hated to admit it, Orion was right. They couldn't keep fighting forever. "There has to be another way," Jack muttered, his hand running through his hair as he stared at the icy cavern walls. "There has to be a way to stop this without turning the galaxy into a battlefield." The solution came to him like a flash of light in the darkness. It was risky, and it was far from guaranteed to work, but it was their only chance. Jack turned back to Orion, his face set with determination. "We make them see," Jack said quietly. "We show the galaxy what you really are, not a weapon, not something to be feared, but a guardian, a protector of the balance. If the galaxy understands that, then maybe, just maybe, we can stop this war before it starts." Orion tilted its massive head, considering Jack's words. "You would risk everything on the hope that they will listen? That they will choose peace over power?" Jack's jaw tightened. "If we don't, the galaxy will burn. They'll come for you and then for each other. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about everyone. We have to try." The lion was silent for a long moment, the glow of its mane flickering like distant stars. Then slowly it nodded. "Very well, Jack Ryland, we will do as you say, but know this. If they do not listen, if they choose war, then we will stand against them together." Jack's heart pounded in his chest, but he nodded. Together. The Galactic Council gathered on Nebula Prime, the heart of the Federation, a planet of gleaming spires and swirling clouds. It was a place where power was brokered, alliances were made, and decisions that shaped the fate of the galaxy were decided. And now the eyes of the entire galaxy were fixed on the council chamber, where Jack Ryland and Orion had been called to present their case. Jack stood in the centre of the grand hall, the light from distant stars casting shadows on the polished floor around him. The council members sat in a circular formation, their faces hidden behind elaborate robes and masks, each representing a different faction of the Federation. Behind Jack, the massive form of Orion stood tall, its mane once again glowing brightly, though the creature's posture was calm, regal even. This was not a beast. This was a being of cosmic power, and everyone in the room could feel it. Admiral Thalion was there, his cold eyes locked on Jack, though the arrogance he once carried had been replaced by something else. Fear. He knew what Orion could do. He had seen it. Sergeant Ryland, began Councillor Zarya, a high-ranking official whose voice was as cold as the air around them. You and this creature have defied the Federation, endangered the balance of power, and now stand before us asking for what? Mercy? Surrender? Jack straightened, his gaze sweeping the room. I'm not here to ask for mercy, he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. And I'm not asking for surrender. I'm here to stop a war. Orion isn't a weapon. He's not something to be caged or controlled. He's a guardian of the galaxy. He protects the balance, and if you keep pushing for control, you'll destroy the very thing he's here to protect. The room buzzed with murmurs, but Councillor Zarya raised a hand to silence them. You claim that this creature is a guardian, but the Federation's records show only chaos and destruction in its wake. How can we trust your word? Jack took a deep breath. He had prepared for this moment. Because I've seen what happens when we chase power. I've fought in your wars, seen entire worlds wiped out in the name of control. And I'm telling you, this is different. Orion isn't here to destroy. He's here to protect us from ourselves. And if you keep treating him like a threat, then you'll make him one. Zarya leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. And what would you have us do, Sergeant? Stand by while this creature roams the galaxy unchecked? What happens when the next faction decides it wants to use Orion for its own purposes? Jack clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the moment. You make him an ally. You recognize that the power he holds isn't meant for conquest. It's meant for balance. If we can work together, if we can understand that, we can avoid a war that will tear the galaxy apart. The room fell silent. Jack's words hung in the air like the calm before a storm. For a moment it seemed like no one would answer, that his plea would fall on deaf ears. But then Orion stepped forward. The lion's voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant, as if the stars themselves were speaking. For eons, I have watched this galaxy. I have seen its beauty, and I have seen its darkness. I am not here to conquer. I am here to preserve. But know this, I will not allow the balance to be broken. If you seek to control me, you will find only ruin. The council members shifted in their seats, clearly unsettled. Even Admiral Thalion seemed taken aback by the sheer power in Orion's voice. Councillor Zarya looked from Jack to Orion, her expression unreadable. And if we choose peace, what then? Orion's eyes glowed softly. Then I will be your ally. I will protect the balance as I always have, and together we will ensure that the galaxy does not fall to chaos. For a long, tense moment, the room was silent. Then slowly, Councillor Zarya rose to her feet. This council will deliberate, she said, her voice carefully measured. But know this, Sergeant Ryland. If we find that your words are false, and this creature is as dangerous as we have feared, you will both be held accountable. Jack nodded, feeling the weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was a start. The council had listened, and now the fate of the galaxy rested on their decision. As he turned to leave the chamber, Orion by his side, Jack allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had made the galaxy see. Outside the council chamber, the stars stretched out in every direction, vast and unending. Jack knew the road ahead would be long, filled with challenges and dangers they couldn't yet predict. but for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of hope, a hope that together they could change the future. Orion rumbled softly beside him, its cosmic mane shimmering in the light of distant stars. The galaxy is watching, Jack Ryland, but we have shown them the truth. Now we wait. Jack looked up at the stars, his heart filled with determination. Whatever comes next, we face it together. And with that, the soldier and the lion stepped into the future, ready to protect the galaxy from whatever lay ahead.